The most important change I've made in my life is to always keep my pennies. 21 years old, and yes, I do in fact still have a piggy bank. Now, my motivation for saving my change is not just because I'm a broke college student. Actually, I don't even save the money for me, but instead as a donation. And most of the time what I toss into the jar is small. My spare change from the store, a couple pennies I found in my pocket, amounts that probably seem insignificant. But when I was younger, I learned an important lesson. The no change is too small to matter, that every big change starts somewhere, and that all the small things are what add up to the big ones. Back in 2007, my little sister Kira had an idea. She gathered up her change and tossed it into a penny jar for my family's upcoming garage sale. And while it was only pennies at the time, they had a big purpose. She was collecting them for her friend. That friend's name is Angie Lee. Angie is one of the funniest, smartest, and kindest people I've ever had the pleasure of getting to know. But there's something a little different about Angie than the other kids her age. She has a condition called spinal muscular atrophy. SMA is an often fatal disease that destroys the nerves controlling voluntary muscle movement. This affects crawling, walking, head and neck control, and even swallowing. There are 4 different types of SMA, type 1, 2, 3, and 4, each classified by the time of onset. Angie has type 1 SMA. Type 1, or Wardnig-Hoffman disease, is the most severe form of SMA, striking infants between birth and 6 months old. Angie and other children affected with type 1 cannot sit without support. SMA is a disease that often goes undiscussed, but it can have a big impact on those affected by it. My family was entirely unfamiliar with the disease until we found our personal connection. Kira found out about Angie's condition when she was about 8 years old and wanted to do something. She talked to Angie's mom and found out that there was an organization called Families of SMA that accepted donations towards research for a cure. So unlike a typical 8-year-old who might spend their piggy bank change on candy or toys, my sister decided that Families of SMA was where her pennies would go. 8 years old and already confident that she had the power to change the world. We were having a family garage sale and my sister wanted to put a jar out on the checkout table. She was hoping maybe people would toss in their extra change as they left. But that small jar sparked something big. My family decided to donate all the proceeds to Families of SMA, and we started spreading the word to our friends and neighbors. Next thing we knew, word got out that we were planning this garage sale, and the local newspaper started to call. They published a story in the paper the next day, and donations to the garage sale started pouring in. By the sale had rolled around, my sister and Angie had been interviewed by a number of different local newspapers. And then they even showed up on TV. The story was starting to grow. On the day of the sale, we had to close down the street as the table spilled out from our garage into our front yard and even into the yard of our next door neighbor as well. And in a matter of 10 days, we raised nearly $10,000. My sister then realized that she'd started something big and we knew that we had to keep it going. For the next 10 years, my family and I hosted an annual charity event every September. What had started as a neighborhood garage sale eventually got too big to host at our house, and so we decided to switch things up. We held pasta parties for a few years, a soccer tournament for kids, and for our 10th and final year, a formal gala. But despite the growing events and the growing attention, the penny jars were always part of our effort. While some of the donations we received were wildly generous, we did our best to encourage anyone that wanted to help to know that whatever they could give would make a difference. My favorite part of the events was always the pennies. Once the garage sales were over and the raffles and the silent auctions had all wrapped up, counting the money was always the next step. We would roll into the bank with buckets and buckets full of change, and watching them pour it out and count it up was pretty inspiring. When it was all said and done, the events raised a total of more than $200,000, or 20 million pennies in 10 years. And while the money was important, what we were really fighting for was change, and eventually our efforts cashed out. Shortly after our last event, some big news was announced in the world of SMA. Spinraza was released onto the market as the first drug to treat spinal muscular atrophy for patients. Now, thanks to my sister's pennies, and our friends' pennies, and our neighbors' pennies, all of our small change had made a big difference. Now, 12 years after that first penny jar, I still keep my change. And while we might not host a big giant fundraiser, my family continues to make personal donations and to attend other charity benefits. Through Kira's idea, Angie's Hope, we met people affected with SMA from all over the country. They've started charity events, personal campaigns, and smaller fundraisers over the years. And while we might not be able to give large contributions every time, I try to support every campaign that pops up, because this story of harnessing small donations for big changes is adding up to big movements all over the world. According to research from the nonprofit Quarterly, eBay was able to run a very successful campaign by asking for small contributions. In a single year alone, the company raised more than $54 million by encouraging online sellers to donate just a small portion of their proceeds to charity. And it happens in stores too. Have you ever seen the miracle balloons hanging on the wall at Sam's Club and Walmart? When you go to check out, the cashier might ask you if you'd like to make a small donation for a chance to decorate a balloon and hang it up on the wall. This simple campaign, fueled by $5 donations, raised more than $41 million for pediatric hospitals in 2012. And it doesn't just have to be a few dollars. Spare change has the power to add up too. More than 13,000 McDonald's restaurants have change collection bins on their counters and in the drive-thru. Similar to my family's collections, the hope is that people will just toss in whatever change they have. And it's a thought that counts. Since the program started nearly a decade ago, McDonald's has raised more than $25 million a year for the Ronald McDonald House through the use of these donation buckets. These are a few of the notable campaigns, but there are stories like these going unrecognized all over. According to the Cause Marketing Forum, over the last 29 years, these sorts of campaigns have raised more than $2.3 billion for charity. A charitable contribution does not always have to be a big grand gesture. What may seem insignificant to you can prove very significant to a person in need. Realizing that the little things matter is the only way we can all harness our own power to make lasting change. Now, I'm sure each of you in this room have heard of a little thing called the first quarter wave. That's when 70,000 Hawkeye fans turn and wave towards the said Family Children's Hospital and the children inside it. It's become somewhat of a national story, garnering media attention from across the country. During football season, it's become a home game tradition, and everyone in the stadium participates. Now, just for a second, I want you to imagine if every person that turned and did the first quarter wave was willing to donate just whatever spare change they had in their pocket. For a group of people who were so moved by the kids in that children's hospital every game day, they probably wouldn't hesitate to toss in 50 cents if they thought it would make a difference. Well, it actually would. Here's what would happen if every person in Kinnick Stadium donated 50 cents to the said Family Children's Hospital on just one game day. If 70,585 people donated 50 cents, that would add up to a total of $35,292.50. Each person gives a mere 50 cents in a stadium full of people could impact the lives of a hospital full of kids. But what if that became a weekly tradition? If we were able to get a 50-cent donation from every Hawkeye fan every game day for just one season, we would raise $247,047.50 in just one football season. And all by just collecting pocket change. So I urge each of you to think about where your pennies go. Whether you choose to toss them in the collection at McDonald's, donate $1 on your purchase at the store, or join me and my sister in the fight against SMA, the message here is that your pennies matter. Because no donation is too small. Without the work of everyday people, Spinraza would likely not be a reality. Penny jars from all over the country fueled the research of a life-saving treatment. Now, thanks to hundreds and thousands of ordinary people's small donations, Angie continues to live a happy life. After getting a perfect score on her ACT as a sophomore in high school, Angie pretty much had her pick of schools. Today, she's a sophomore at Stanford University. She remains involved on campus and writes a personal blog online where she talks about her experience living with SMA. Thanks to Spinraza, Angie finally got a glimpse of what she thought was impossible. She's planning to participate in the clinical trial for Spinraza in the near future. SMA is an often fatal disease which can cut a patient's life short. Now, Angie and her parents and families just like hers are hoping they'll be able to get more time together thanks to the breakthrough. So next time you want to make a donation but you think you don't have enough to give, press send anyway. Toss in your change anyway. Make a donation anyway. Because the power of pennies is changing lives all over the world and you could be a part of it.